Friends, we are learning the lesson Lost Spring written by Anish Jung, and in the last video we have discussed, we have learned how the author Anish Jung, she met the red picker and asked about his life, about his name. The red picker, that means whose name was Sahib Alam, told told her about his lifestyle, how he has come from Dhaka and has for his livelihood and has settled in the city, and uh, and his occupation is rag picking. That means for collecting garbage, and thus he uh, continues his life. And at last, the authoress, that means author Anish Jung, sees that he has no chappals in his feet. So she also asks about it. So many rag pickers were there, and their answers were different. But she knew that all these are because of poverty. Next, when she came to know about the life of the rag pickers, the way they live, now she remembers a story. What is written here? I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. A man from Udupi told her a story. As a young boy, he would go to a school past an old temple. When he was young, he used to go to his school uh, by an old temple where his father was a priest, and his father was a priest there. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. That means it was a childish, what you can say, ignorance of a child, that he would stop at the front of the temple and would pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. Look here. After 30 years, the author visited the town and also the temple and found that there was nothing. Now that has been changed into a new form. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs, and now where in the backyard of the temple where the new priest lived, that means now the priest has been changed. Where the new priest lived, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. When he went there, when he reached there, he saw a young boy who was wearing a school dress had arrived there and threw his bag on the folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Now he remembers the prayer of that boy who had prayed before the temple to get a pair of shoes. Now she thought that he had got his shoes. Let me never lost them. The goddess had granted his prayer, and he thought that he should not lose them, and goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes. Now young boys of the children of the priest wore shoes, but many other like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remain shoeless. And even the rag pickers who are living in the neighborhood of the author, they had no shoes to wear. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapur, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. That means when she when she make a bond between the rag pickers and her, and this led her to Simapuri, a nearby place of Delhi, and she visited that place. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971, and the people who lived that place were squatters who had come to India in 1971 from Bangladesh. Saheb's family is among them, and Saheb's family was also of that group. Simapuri was then a wilderness, that means what a backward place. It still is, but it is no longer empty. It is still it, but it was no longer empty. What it is now full of people. In a structure of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage, or running water, live 10,000 rate pickers. Look, now it has become a very big slum area where 10,000 rate pickers live in this place. They have lived here for more than 30 years without any identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voters list and enable them to buy grain. They have been living in this place for 30 years and they have no identity, but they have ration card and their names are also on the voter list, so they are able to buy their grains or to get their grains. Food is more important for survival than an identity. It is right that food is the essential thing. We know that food is essential thing for a man than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. Oh, no grain. Say a group of women in the tattered saris when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. When the author Anish Jung asked the women, the group of women at that place, why they had left their beautiful land of green field and rivers, then what they answered? They said that if we get proper food at the end of the food, and if we are able to go to our bed without etching of our stomach, then it is okay for our life, because that kind of land do not give any food or any supplement for their livelihood. Whenever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes, and wherever they find food, they make their tents there and start their life there. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival, and children also grow up with them and they become the partners of them. And survival in Simapuri mean rack packing. And in Simapuri, that means if you are living in Simapuri, that means your job is rack picking. Through the years, it has acquired the prosperous of a fine art, and through the whole years, the long years, it has been found that it is a way of life, it is a art, it is a you can say business of life. Garbage to them is gold, and this garbage is gold for them, because this garbage give them food, their livelihood. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. Look, because it is not made of sand and stone, so always it is leaking, but that is their home, that is their place to live. But for a child, it is even more, and for a child, it is even more than a house. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note. Sahib says, his eyes lighting up with a delighted voice. Sahib says that while collecting the garbage, while searching in the garbage, he finds a rupee, even a 10 rupee note in that place. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop browsing, for there is hope of finding more. And if you find a rupee in the garbage, then they start searching it more carefully, because they hope that they will get, or they would get more money or more gold from that place. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. Look, this means that the garbage means differently to the children and also to their parents or guardians. For the children, it is a wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. Look, the children think that it is wrapped of wonders, because if they search in the garbage, they can find money, gold, silver, anything. While the parents think that it is a way of survival. It is a way of survival. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood. One day, the authoress see that Sahib was standing in the before the fence gate of their neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis, and he was watching two men playing tennis. I like the game. He hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. And standing behind the fence, he says, "I like the game." That means he likes to play the game tennis. I go inside when no one is around. He admits, and he says that if there is no one, he goes inside the tennis court. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing, and the gatekeeper also allows him to use the swing to swing in that place. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts, and Sahib is also wearing tennis shoes which is not matched with his shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. Then he would say that someone had given me the shoes. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them. That means leftover. It was a leftover of some rich boy who had given the shoes to Sahib. Does not bother him, and it does not. That means it was there was a hole in the shoes, but it does not matter for Sahib. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. Look, the author says that who has walked always barefooted, and if he got a torn out shoes, it was a lock for him. It was a lock for him. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. But the game, that means tennis, it is not possible to play for him because it was a costly game, and it was not possible for a rake picker to play that kind of game. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth, and this morning, Sahib is on the way to his milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister, and he has a something vessel to take the milk. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. Now he says that he is working in a tea stall, and he pointed the tea stall to the author. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals, and he was paid 800 rupees and meals, that means food for to eat. Does he like the job? The question is that I ask. Then the author asks, does he like the job? His face, I see, has lost the carefree look, but there was something unsatisfactory in his face. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. That means at that time, the steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag that he would carry on his shoulder to search in the garbage. The bag was his because the bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop, and the canister was of that man who owned the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master, and Sahib is no longer master of the canister. I want to drive a car. Mukesh insists on being his own master. Mukesh said that I want to drive a car, and he insists to be his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces, and he says he would be a motor mechanic. Do you know anything about cars? I ask. Then I ask, do you know anything about a car? He answers. What he says, I will learn to drive a car, he answers. And looking straight into my eyes, that means the author eyes, he said that he would learn to drive a car. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his town Firozabad, and his dream was just like a piece of dust in the streets of Firozabad. That means it is not possible to do that. Famous for its bangles, and Firozabad, is famous for its bangles. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles, and every family in the middle class family of Firozabad is busy in making bangles. It is the center of India's glass blowing industry, where families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for all the women in the land. It seems that whenever you visit Firuzabad, you will see that many families are busy making bangles, glass bangles, and you will see many things, many instruments, many tools, furnaces, whatever they need. They are in Firuzabad. Mukesh family is among them, and Mukesh family is also among them. None of them know that it is illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnaces with high temperature. And none of any members of the family know that children like Mukesh should not work in the glass furnaces with high temperature because it is dangerous for their life. In dinghy cells without air and light, that the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces where they slog their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. That means it is said that near about 20,000 children are working in Firozabad in glass making industries, and the heat of the temperature of the furnaces are affecting their eyes badly. Mukesh eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. Now Mukesh become very happy when he takes the author to his home, and he also proudly says that the house is being rebuilt. We walk down stinking lands choked with garbage, past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls, ugly doors, no windows, crowded with families of humans and animals coexisting in a permissible state. You can imagine that what would be the position, what would be the condition of a slum area where nothing was there, no drainage system, no road system, no street system. So everything, there was hustle and bustle, everything, everywhere there is garbage and garbage. So the author and Mukesh were going to that way to Mukesh's house. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot and pushes it open. Then they also reached a house like that, and it had a iron door which he pushed open by his legs. We enter a half-built shack. Look, shack, understand, just like a tent house. So they entered a half-built like shack. In one part of it, thatched with draped grass is a firewood stove over which sits a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves. Look the scene of the house, very poor condition. On the ground, in large aluminium platters, are more chopped vegetables. There, everything was scattered here and there. A frail young woman is cooking the evening meal for the whole family, and a weak woman was preparing to cook the evening meal for the whole family. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles, and seeing them, she tried to smile. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. That means she was the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. That means Mukesh's sister-in-law. Not much other in years, she has begun to command respect as the Bahu, the daughter-in-law of the house, already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. She was taking care of 3 persons at that house, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. That means her father-in-law. When the older man enters, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her veil closer to her face. It's the custom. Whenever someone enters the house, she pulls down the veil to her face. As custom demands, daughters-in-law must veil their faces before male elders. In this case, the elder is an impoverished Bengal maker. That means the family also engaged in Bengal making. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor, then a Bengal maker, he has failed to renovate a house, send his 2 sons to school. Look, in how much they are earning, he is unable to live a good life. He is unable to send his sons to school. He is unable to renovate a house. All he has managed to do to teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. So he has taught on his 2 sons only what he knew that means to make how to make bangles. Now students, tomorrow I will complete the lesson and also watch the video. If you find any difficulty, then ask me through my personal WhatsApp number.